Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. My name's Dabney, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. Today, I have back a fan favorite, an amazing storyteller, a really fun person, Christopher Renstrom.
Oh, shucks.
You are. He's an
Thank you.
astrologer.
I love your title. I love like Lawless Astrology Channel. That is just like so fantastic. I love
Oh,
that.
thank you. You know,
Yeah.
my teacher is Stephen Forrest, and he was the one who was like, it needs to be lawless astrology. Like, you don't get to name it anything else. And I was like, but that's my name. And like, he was like, nope, that's it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna trust the master.
He did well, he did you a good turn. It's
Thank you.
fantastic. It's a great name. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Christopher, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Christopher, but if you are not, he has written several books. He is a fantastic astrologer. He is
Oh.
a regular on Astrology Hub, but he also has his own channel where, and I'm a follower, I'm a member. He has a salon. You can go over there and check his work out, and I promise you will not be sorry because he just has such a unique way of making the astrology really resonant, which is and memorable, which I don't feel like I get from every astrologer.
Yeah.
So that I really love. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
enough about you. Just kidding. Let's
Okay.
talk about the
What about
astrology.
you? All right. Okay. Let's talk about astrology. Thank you for that. I so appreciate that. That's so sweet. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
mean it 100% sincerely. So yeah, definitely check out his channel and his salon. I love that he calls it a salon. It makes me so happy.
I
But
know.
it's really fun, and he does like mystery charts and all sorts of cool stuff. So today, what we're going to be talking about though is we're going to be looking at the spring because
Mm.
it's very active spring. And spring has officially sprung, and we are kind of coming out of the darkness of winter. And it may not feel like that in the East Coast, but I know that you guys, the tulips are already poking their heads through. So that's when
Right.
I know Aries
Right.
season's on its way. It's here.
Right.
So we're
Right.
going to be talking about Jupiter going direct. We're going to be talking about this big Aries stellium that's happening in April.
Mhm.
And then we're going
Mhm.
to just like do a little bit on Gemini
Yeah.
and Uranus going into Gemini. So we've got a lot to cover. Big breath. Hi.
Let's go.
Go.
Aries, let's go.
That's right. Okay. So why don't
Of course,
you
Jupiter goes direct.
okay, so like spring, do you kind of get that spring energy yet? Have you started to feel it yet?
We started it earlier than most. Okay, it's already kind of spring. We're having 50-degree weather in Utah right now, which is kind
Okay.
of completely unheard of, and yeah, we so while everyone else is getting the snow, we're supposed to be getting, and the ski slopes are looking kind of rocky and bare. It's kind of like we're like, that was supposed to come over here. So we've got daffodils already flowering. Okay,
Our
that's
daffodils are
how far
flowering here in
along.
California
Yeah,
too. But
that's
I
how
was
far
trying to be
along.
kind to those in the East Coast who are still like shoveling or,
Which is hard. I mean, I remember doing it. It's
it's a thing.
shoveling is a thing.
But metaphorically speaking, do you
Yeah,
feel like spring? I felt like there was a real turn with the Saturn Neptune into Aries. It was
yeah,
like, okay,
yeah, yeah.
we're not
And
fully
also that
done. Spring's
eclipse.
coming.
Yeah, and also that eclipse, that eclipse at 28 degrees Aquarius was really, kind of like a to the system type of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So just kind of like, even though it's still winter and technically, it's kind of like, okay, I feel new energy on the horizon, is kind of
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
I'm feeling.
Yeah. Well, and we've got these planets returning. I mean, another thing that would have added to that feeling, obviously, would be Neptune re-entering Aries and Saturn re-entering Aries. So that's going to bring the fire energy very much there, and forming sextiles, at the very least to Pluto and Aquarius by sign. So that's already going to be a sort of rousing, wakening type of energy. We might not think of Saturn and Neptune as being rousing or awakening types of energies. But when they sextile a planet like Pluto, for instance, yeah, it's very much that. And then Uranus, when it goes into Gemini on April 25th, I think, or 26th, will complete that idea. We'll have a lot of this return of the fire and air energy again. We had it with us through late spring of summer of last year. Then the planets went retrograde, so we sort of had a more dormant type of autumn, and then it began picking up again at the beginning part of this year when those planets return to the fire signs. So this is going to be an energy that we're absolutely going to be dealing with and probably already are. If anything, the sun might be a kind of Johnny come lately, to the thing. It's like by the time the sun gets there, everyone's kind of like already up and going sort of thing.
Yeah, the energy of this time is so unique. And I think that for me, the next little piece of the puzzle that's going to flip is Jupiter going direct. So do you mind if I
Right.
pull that chart up?
Absolutely. Oh,
All
we
right.
have charts today.
We have charts today. I know.
We have
Usually we
charts
do
today.
chat.
Oh my God, what a beautiful chart. Wait, d where'd you get those colors? Those are beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So this is actually, Christopher, you're not going to believe this. This is my new sponsor, Astrotheros.
Astro who?
Astrotheros.
Okay.
And yes, so Astrotheros actually they have an option where you can change the colors. And I
Oh,
thought of you when I did this because Christopher, if you take classes from him, which I have, he talks very much about like spring, summer, fall. He's very much into this.
absolutely. I love it.
Well, thank
And it's
you.
Astro Theros.
Astrotheros. Yeah, actually, you know what? You are giving me the perfect intro. So, everybody,
Mm.
you're just going to have to stay tuned for 1 second. I just want to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, Astrotheros. Astrotheros is a cloud-based astrology software that has actually been a game changer for me. It is accessible by your laptop, your phone, your tablet, and it syncs across all of them. It is also incredibly intuitive. So if you like the clean look and you can see how easy I am flowing back and forth these charts, everything I'm using on today's episode is Astrotheros. If you are interested in trying out Astrotheros, you can get a free month. So you just go to astrotheros.com, use the code LAWLESS. Okay, so that was so amazing that I just popped this up and you were excited about it. So thank you so much, Christopher. That's so
I
fun.
got your back, honey. I got your back.
I love it. I love it. So yes, thank you, Astrotheros. Okay, well, all the charts we're going to be looking at today are Astrotheros charts. So
Right.
here we have Jupiter going direct on March 10th. And before
Mhm.
I got on, Christopher was sort of saying like he doesn't do too much about like the ingress chart, meaning like the chart like the day that something happens. But you read charts all the time. And so this
Mhm.
is going to be kind of like a fun opportunity for you and I to just kind of discuss this Jupiter going direct. So
Right.
it's in the sign of Cancer. It's
Hmm.
going direct um, in East Coast, ninth house. Let's just talk about Jupiter and Cancer in general. Tell me your thoughts about Jupiter and Cancer.
Lots of thoughts. The other thing that I want to add is that Jupiter rules the sun, which is in Pisces. And so it's pulling it's a tidal pull on that sun, which is in Pisces. The sun in Pisces is going to follow the direction of the Jupiter in Cancer. I love Jupiter retrogrades and directs. I think they're so powerful and so profound to me. The thing that I want to also add here is that Jupiter is exalted. If you're familiar with planetary dignities, Jupiter is exalted in the zodiac sign of Cancer. Working with retrogrades is such a complex thing. When I first began astrology, I would be like, okay, retrogrades going to be the exact reverse of what it is when it's moving forward. So I kind of went with that equation. And then I read Aaron Sullivan's book, which was a retrograde can be a more reflective period. And I was like, oh, okay. But as I began to, and I like that. I really value her. I value her work a lot. She's a tremendous astrologer. But as I began to work with retrogrades more and more, certain things keyed in with me. I mean, for instance, if you're looking at a Jupiter retrograde, a Mars retrograde, a Saturn retrograde, retrogrades are when the planets are visible, or when the outer planets at the very least, meaning planets outside of Earth's orbit. Let me clarify that. The planets outside Earth's orbit when those planets are retrograde that are visible to the to our eye, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, they are visible for the longest time when they were retrograde. Okay. And that's because they're opposite. They're moving in and out of opposition with the sun. All right. So when, Jupiter turns retrograde, it will turn retrograde following a trine to the sun and then moves towards its opposite point to the sun. And then as the sun is approaching Jupiter again, there will be a trine, and then Jupiter will come out of retrograde. So you can see here in the chart with the sun at 20 degrees Pisces, they had just had a trine. Okay. And now it's moved past that trine and it's approaching the Jupiter. The sun is approaching Jupiter. It's the faster moving planet. And that is the signal that Jupiter is coming out of retrograde. So if the sun is departing and there's a trine to like a Mars or Jupiter or Saturn, you can tell that Mars, Jupiter, Saturn are about to go retrograde because the sun will be opposite them. And those planets will be visible in the nighttime sky for a very long time. And then as it moves to a trine and moves closer to it, you can tell that those planets are going to come out of retrograde. So, this whole idea of the visibility of the planet in the nighttime sky for such a sustained period of time, really kind of got me thinking about retrogrades in a new and different way. I mean, in some ways, it almost reminds me of, I don't know if you ever did this, Dabney, but you're coloring something when you're a kid with a felt pen. But then maybe if you wanted to make it really, I don't know if you've got this kind of Sagittarius in your chart or something. But anyway,
The Sag rising.
okay, like you really want that color to be bold, and so you go back and forth and maybe even accidentally rip the page or
Yes.
something like that.
Yep.
It's like, okay, that's almost what a retrograde does. It goes back and forth over these degrees and it highlights the degrees that it's retrograded over. And those become very powerful degrees moving forward. But to me, sometimes a planet can be the reverse of what it was before. But another idea that really struck me is the planet withdraws its governing energy when it's retrograde. So for instance, when we're going through a Venus retrograde, is it because Venus has like turned and shown her, bitchy side or whatever to us, and that's why people are having breakups and all these things happen? Or has Venus removed her governing energy, which is the energy of peace and harmony? Has she removed that because she's retrograde? Does Jupiter remove the higher purpose or the good fortune? Does Saturn remove? I don't know. Saturn retrogrades to me are like redundant. You
That's
don't mind my saying, it was like things that are slow get slower. But for me, a Jupiter retrograde, to me, it goes with Jupiter and Saturn are so paired. They're really opposite sides of the same coin. Jupiter is the hand that gives, and Saturn is the hand that withholds or taketh away. And so I think both of them are testing planets. And I think that what Jupiter tests is faith. Jupiter tests your relationship to good fortune and faith, belief. And so when it's retrograde, when it's removed its governing energy, if you experience good fortune before it went retrograde, are you like easy come, easy go? So what? What do I care? Or, I found my higher calling, but now I'm disappointed. Jupiter's gone retrograde. I'm disappointed. I can't find my way. Do I give up on it? Or do you double down on your belief? Do you double down on your faith? Which is something that I've seen happen a lot with Jupiter retrogrades. Jupiter might pile you up with good things, not like lottery winnings or anything like that, but good things. And then it pulls the plug when it's retrograde. And then it asks, do you believe in me? Do you believe in this Jupiterian energy or not? And if you're like, oh, fate was nice to me and now I hate it, then that's an obvious answer. But if it's like, this is testing my faith, this is testing my belief, I'm centering that faith and belief in me rather than the sky. I think that those are things that come up during the period of time of a Jupiter retrograde. And if you hang strong or focus on that faith and belief when it comes out of retrograde again, I think there's not necessarily a tangible reward, but the reward of having seen your faith in a path that you chose or your belief in a venture that was going on, I think you see it rewarded because you stayed with it. Or those are things that I've seen with Jupiter going direct and retrograde.
Okay. So that's the juice with
Hmm.
Christopher. I love his teachings. Like I always learn something new. And anytime that I talk to you, I do get this like, and while we're talking, so I have, as people that watch my channel often know, and I love to talk about, I have 4 planets in Cancer.
Mm,
And this winter, and Jupiter went retrograde, I think in November.
yes.
This winter's been brutal. And
Oh, oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. It's part of life. And brutal for
Yeah.
me is like I'm very lucky. Jupiter plays a big strong role in my chart. Not only it's a ruler in my
Mhm.
chart, it's in Pisces. So anyway, big Jupiter in my chart. Point being, Jupiter going retrograde, when you said that it's what was the term you used, like it's withholding its energy
It's
or
governance. It's governing energy. It's
yeah.
governing energy.
And I love the big picture of that because I definitely felt that. And I imagine other cancers can relate to that, where it was sort of this sense of like you had to kind of rely on your natal Jupiter in a way. Like you
Mhm.
had to really get in touch with your natal Jupiter, wherever that is, because it was sort of withheld on some level for us cancers. And so I'm looking forward to it going direct simply because it's been one of those things where I feel like my faith has been tested, my good fortune has been tested, like all of those things, but in a way it's a gift because then it was like it refocused me like if I want those things I need to find it in myself. I need to find it in
Mhm.
my own natal chart. It's not like the
Mhm.
transiting energy is like there to and it's almost like it's shining a spotlight on it. So
Right.
we are a Cancer nation as well.
Right.
I'm going to pull this back up again because I'm going to put it up with uh the US chart here. Okay. So when Jupiter goes direct, it's going to be
Mhm.
right on the US moon.
Right.
And what's interesting about,
U.S. Sun. U.S. Sun, because I
excuse me.
think our moon's in Aquarius. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. Misspoke. Everything you're saying like really is sort of an interesting thing that I'm wanting to unpack because I look at
Mhm.
like this winter while Jupiter has been retrograde and there has been it's interesting this idea of withholding governance and then the idea of like really kind of getting into your natal Jupiter to kind of
Mhm.
draw that energy from within. And some of the shadow of a native Jupiter in Cancer is nativism, is tribalism, is a fear of the
Mhm.
other. It is kind of
Mhm.
like I protect my own at all costs, like because I have to. Like there's kind of a like mama bear sort of energy, but that can get out of
Absolutely.
whack, right? And that's where we start to like get the blaming outsiders for
Mhm.
problems that maybe we need to look within.
I think that it's a very important time because you have to look at Jupiter, right? Which is in what zodiac sign? It's in Cancer. Okay. The ruler of Cancer in the American chart is Aquarius. And by the way, that's where you get your diversity. I mean, that's where you get this wrinkle in the US chart. Because
Right.
on one hand, if it were just the Cancer and the Jupiter there, it would be the nativism that you talk about. But because the ruling planet of Cancer goes into Aquarius, that's the diversity. And that's the welcoming the outsider or bringing in someone who is different and other. And so that has never sat comfortably in America, and it never will. All you have to do is look at the chart and you'll see that. But what I also want to bring to your attention is that Jupiter's going to go direct over the sun. But we also just had a solar eclipse at, I believe it was 28 degrees Aquarius, which
Yeah,
means
right
that
on the
solar
moon.
eclipse was right on the moon. So we are connecting through transit, the Jupiter going direct over the United States of American sun, but then we're also bringing in an eclipse, which obviously involved the sun and the moon, all right, at the same place in the sky at 28 degrees Aquarius. So this wrinkle, okay, in the United States of America chart, and I call quincunx energies wrinkles. The planets may not be an exact quincunx, but by sign it's quincunx, and the idea of quincunx becomes stronger because the ruler of the Cancer goes into the Aquarius. These are two zodiac signs that really don't get one another. It's not like they love or hate, they just don't really get one another. And so you end up with a very curious reading of the two energies. Like, how can a country that is about nativism or whatever also be welcoming strangers and foreigners and things along those lines? I mean, that's where you see the expression of the Cancer and the Aquarius that's going on. Or the threat of AI, which is very, which is the technological genie that's being unleashed, that's going to, perhaps wipe out, the workers of America and the simple, so you see these themes that are running on through right now. And I think that what's kind of fascinating is that Jupiter's coming out of retrograde. As we said, it withholds its governing energy, and then it's following on the heels of an eclipse. And an eclipse, the etymology of eclipse is that, the etymology of an eclipse, it involves luminaries, right? The moon is on the sun for the solar, and the moon is opposite the sun, and the earth casts its shadow for the lunar. Okay, the luminaries are eclipse. The lights in heaven darken, right?
Mhm.
The etymology of eclipse is that it's the idea that the luminaries have abandoned their places. Okay, that they've left their place. So again, it's this idea of a withdrawal of governance, withdrawal of the governing energy that's taking place here. And in ancient civilizations, and even, until recently, in the East, there was the feeling that when there was a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, that the portal between the surface world and the underworld had disappeared, and so everything from underneath was coming forth. And so they would grab pots and pans or loud bells, and they would bang them very loudly to scare the demons back away until the proper lights, came up. So what's going on here is that it's almost like we're going to be on the other side of a cloud having gone in front of the sun. The eclipse energy has been um, planted. Whenever you have a solar eclipse, that's a planting of seeds. That energy has been planted, and then the Jupiter is picking up its governance again. So it's a little bit like, I'm home. And did you miss me? And what went on, kids, while I was gone? If you remember Cat in the Hat, the kids very quickly cleaned everything up or whatever because the mother is returning. And I think that, and also Jupiter is such a moral planet. We talk about philosophy with Jupiter, and absolutely we need to talk about philosophy with Jupiter, but we also have to talk about morality with Jupiter because of its association with the church and its association with the spiritual life. And most specifically, it's associated with good. Jupiter represents good. And so there is a moral quality to Jupiter. So have people acted morally? Okay. Have they been upstanding? Have they been good people? That's a question that would fit quite perfectly with that. And when you remember that Aquarius is a zodiac sign that says essentially society is only as good as the people in it, you can see where a lot of these questions through and it's not just questions when you're dealing with retrogrades and eclipses. You're you're dealing with predicaments and dilemmas as well. Okay, so it's like, here's a moral predicament or here's a moral dilemma. It's not easily solved. And the point of a predicament or a dilemma is that it raises the consciousness because you can't fall back on the simple answers or the traditional answers. You have to answer it. A moral predicament or a moral dilemma, it's what you were saying earlier, Dabney. You have to answer it for yourself. You have to fall back on the Jupiter in your own chart. You have to answer it for yourself.
So that then brings us to our next topic, I think, in some
Hmm.
ways, as we are in this. Let's look at this the new moon in Aries, the stellium chart.
Hmm.
Is I think, around this March timeframe, right now as we speak, we have invaded Iran. There are a lot of questions about what this means. It's not very popular. And here we have all of these planets mid-April in Aries. So this is another one of those. I'm sure everyone watching is so sick of hearing astrologers saying like this hasn't happened in our lifetimes. But
Well, that's what you hear on a political show. This is unprecedented. It's like I'm tired of unprecedented. Unprecedented is so yesterday's news.
right.
Just unprecedented.
So I remember when we talked about the Saturn Uranus conjunction in Aries. No, not Saturn Uranus. I must be I just want to go play outside. It's sunny and I want to go play. Sorry,
Right.
everybody.
I'm
Saturn
sorry.
Neptune. I'm tuning in.
Yeah.
The Saturn Neptune energy. I remember you saying Christian nationalism, and you were
Mhm.
saying like crusades and wars of religion. And
Mhm.
just yesterday, it came out that like some people in the military are, talking about this this war, this attack, really as part of the bigger, rapture Armageddon story
Yeah,
as well.
they're trundling that on out again. Okay. That's an old chestnut.
Yes. I
But
don't
yeah.
want to drag Christopher into politics because he does not do that on his channel, and I will not drag him into that. However, I had to
However, it is worth talking about that particular issue. Yeah, yeah.
because you blew my mind with that. You were like so right on that that is like what is happening. That is not all the Saturn Neptune is about by any stretch. And like
Mhm.
again, there's just different paths, and people are going to have this kind of in their zeitgeist. So here we are, all this energy in Aries, and it's a new moon. Talk to me
Mhm.
about what you think about this, what the higher expression of all this Aries is and what it potentially means for each one of us.
Well, the first thing that strikes me, of course, right off the bat, is that the new moon sextiles the solar eclipse in Aquarius. Okay. And what I like about that is I love sextiles. Okay. I'm like the hugest sextile fan. When I was learning astrology, I was like, sextile, what's a sextile?
Me too. I'm always like, oh,
Right?
they're
It's
too
just
boring.
it always felt like, Skipper to Barbie, like the trine was Barbie and the sextile was Skipper.
Man, I love Christopher Renstrom. That's you just said what I've thought for years. Like, so I'm just like, oh, sextile, everything's fine. Your excitement, whatever.
Right, exactly. And I thought sextile was a wannabe trine, type of thing. But then, over the years that I've practiced this great art, astrology, okay, I have grown to adore Skipper. Okay,
All
I've
right,
like
give me some
grown to
skipper because
adore.
I'm still back there with the wannabe trying. Give it to me.
The trine is beautiful. Okay, trines are wonderful. I mean, we have so many discordant, potentially discordant aspects in astrology. I'm like, treasure and appreciate the good ones. Okay. 'Cause sometimes people be like, oh, a trine is like, it's a lazy way out or a path of least resistance. I'm like, okay, you want to just live in a world of quincunxes, squares, and oppositions? Okay. You try living like that. All right. You're going to love the trine. Stop dumping on the trine. Okay. It's like, it's a good thing. And trines are unconditional support. Okay. They really, really are. Two planets in trine, they're like, let's go and do this. That sounds great. Let's go do it together. I love you. There's unconditional love, support, all of this. It's beautiful. And in our day and age, especially right now, you want your trines,
You
okay,
want,
in
okay.
whatever elements they show up. A sextile and a trine, each of the aspects are of the nature of a planet, okay, regardless of whether it involves that planet or not. So, for instance, trines are of the nature of Jupiter. Squares, obviously, are the nature of Mars. Sextiles. Sextiles are of the nature of Venus. And
Ooh,
that's when it began to unlock for me sextiles in a chart. Sextiles are conversational. Okay. So it's two people who, we've got this mutual thing in common, but it's not going to be unconditional support. It's not going to be like, I want to do this. Okay, yeah. It's going to be like, I want to do this. I want you to do that, and I want to be behind you doing that. But what do you think about this other option? Or what do you think about this other alternative? Oh, that's interesting. Why don't you keep telling me about it? Well, I was thinking when we first talked about what movie we were going to see tonight, we could like go to dinner over here, or we could. This is what a sextile does. It has a conversation. It's not automatically going to go to the other planet's place because it's not the same element. Okay, it's different. It's same gender, okay, or what we call gender. Or if you don't like those terms, there are elements that are yin and elements that are yang. Okay, a sextile will be two planets of a yang or two planets of a yin, but they're not the same element. So they have a conversation. Life on Earth is different than life in the water. Life in the air is different than life in fire. Okay. But and so but those complementary energies are there. If you think of like, air and fire, a lot of times people would be like hot air, which is funny. But think of a hot air balloon. That was our first experience of flight was ballooning, hot air balloons, which is the release of air through heat into the balloon. That was our civilization's first experience of flight. All right. So that's where you put those together, and then you put together water and earth together, and that's simple. You plant a seed in earth, you water it, and it grows. Okay, so earth and water together are about growing, you know, and air and fire together are really about empowering, or powering up. Think of solar panels, think of windmills, and how they generate electricity and energy. All right, so sextile planets and sextile get one another, but they've got different approaches. But they're not going to get into an argument about it. They're going to get into a conversation about it and come up with some creative alternatives or creative solutions. I love sextiles because they're the first thing I'll look for in oppositions, because oppositions to me can be very stressful aspects. And if there's a sextile hitting that opposition, either natally or by transit, that sextile is redirecting that energy. Okay, it's the sextile sort of an opposition. I always use the same example. Republicans and Democrats in Congress. They're not fighting. They're just not talking to each other, period. That's an opposition. A sextile is the mediator who's saying, let's find something that where we can reach across the aisle. Okay, I know it's not going to last forever, but let's find something where we can. So that sextile is operating as a mediator. It's operating as a go-between. It's operating as a conversation. And so I just think that they're tremendous and terrific and lovely, lovely aspects. And for instance, our new moon sextiles the recent solar eclipse we had at 28 degrees Aquarius. When you've got like an eclipse or a conjunction, this is a boom, these
Yeah.
planets are at the same place at the same time, right? But then when
Mhm.
you have a sextile, there's awareness, there's conversation, there's, you can see past what you were just focusing on. The sextile opens up that focus and brings in conversation. So I really like this new moon in Aries forming a departing sextile from the solar eclipse in Aquarius. It allows us to take that energy and begin to talk about it and to understand it and to apply it. What I'm fascinated by is the conjunction of Chiron and the sun.
Okay.
And Chiron in mythology, as we all know, is Saturn's kid. Okay. And so Chiron is an asteroid, so it doesn't rule, you know. The sun can rule signs, Mercury can rule signs, Neptune can rule signs, but Chiron cannot rule a sign. It is ruled. Okay. It's not the same as a planet. So you see the Chiron in Aries, and there's already a sort of Saturn flavor to Chiron anyway, because it's dealing with a weakness. Okay. And Saturn can be famously compensatory, compensating for that weakness. That's something that Liz Green, the great Jungian astrologer Liz Green, made a point of talking about how Saturn can compensate. So you've got this Chiron, which is in Aries next to the sun. Remember, the sun is exalted in the zodiac sign of Aries. And we're going to go over to Mars. And what planet is Mars next to? Saturn. So there's a weakness that's actually going on here. Um, Aries is dealing with the weakness of Chiron. What is the weakness of Chiron? It's the wounded healer. It's the wound. Chiron talks about where you've been hurt and you're never going to get over it. That's part of Chiron. There's more to the story, but that's essentially the beginning step of the Chiron. And then you've got this Saturn, which is trying to repress. Okay, it's Mars is right next to it. We think of that conflict there, but Saturn is in fall in the zodiac sign of Aries, so it's not as strong. And ultimately, Saturn, along with Chiron, Mercury, the Sun, and Moon, all have to genuflect to Mars. This is Mars's sign. Okay, so we want to think, okay, Mars is going to act out and be rash and impulsive. Is it really? With Chiron and Saturn playing such a strong role by conjunction here, I could see acting out. I would not go with the word impulsive. I could see compensating, you know, making up for, okay, being on a weak footing and saying, no, I'm not, you know, as you're watching the person back, further and further and further towards the ledge, and they're like, yeah, you are. No, I'm not. And then they go. I mean, so there's a lot of compensating for an inner flaw or for a weakness that's going on here. And so I think we're going to hear a lot. I mean, if I were to talk collectively or whatever, we're going to hear a lot about that, boys and their toys, basically. It could be part of that's coming up. People wanting to show that they really are this, but the ground that they're standing on isn't that strong, or they're going to have to generate it, and as they generate that energy might be unsustainable or fatiguing. So I would really pay a lot of attention to that Chiron next to the Sun and the Saturn next to the Mars, all going towards the Mars in that instance.
So I'm hearing kind of like a because like also with the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I popped up the US chart. It's all down, all that Aries energy is down in our fourth house, which is kind of inner reflection, taking a hard look at priorities and our makeup as a country.
It's also the roots. Is it sustainable? The tree doesn't stand if the roots are rotten, and the fourth house is also in horary astrology, for instance, the end of the matter. Okay. And so Saturn and Aries, I'm just playing around with ideas here, but
Yeah,
Saturn and
we're just having a conversation,
yeah, we're
Yeah.
just sextiling, we're just skipper. But Saturn and Aries can be over before it's begun.
Yeah. And Saturn, it does, it kind of constricts and it holds it in and it says like let's ground into like the more responsible action, not just the, bombs a flying. So
Right.
interesting.
So we might have a lot of bombs a flying, and then we might have some very real constraints coming forward about those bombs a flying. Okay. Because Saturn, Aries is about beginnings. And so a big problem that people with Saturn in Aries or Saturn has being in Aries is you don't want a wintry planet. Okay. Saturn is associated, it's the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius, the two coldest signs. Okay. We're going from cold into coldest from Capricorn to Aquarius. You don't want a planet that rules the winter signs in a spring sign. That's why it's in fall in that particular placement. And you can think of it as early frosts. You plant your seeds or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're going to do great. And then there's a frost and it kills everything that you just planted. Or, I'm looking at all these beautiful rose leaves that are starting in my garden, and I know full well we're probably going to have frosts, and everything that's starting to like bloom is going to be. This is Saturn and Aries. over before it's begun. The frost being laid down over what is being growth here. So that's why it was like, I'm not sure it's going to be so rash, impulsive, or free to be in that way. Not with this lineup of planets here. Mars ultimately rules, but Mars has to deal with Neptune, Saturn, Chiron, so you might have a little bit of a Wizard of Oz syndrome here,
Well,
pay
I
no
was
attention to that man behind the curtain,
so when you were talking about the hot air balloon,
yeah.
that is a fascinating metaphor, right? Because we think about like the hot air balloon, it's so cool, and but it is also hot air, right? Like it is
Right.
also like bluster, and when
Hmm.
you think about the Wizard of Oz, we have that Uranus at the very last degree, just about to move into Gemini. So we're
Right.
finishing up something very important there, and that's right on the angle of the chart here. And we have Pluto up at the top of the chart in Aquarius too. So all these pieces are coming in. And so this feels like a very important new moon.
Well, and who you also want to pay attention to here as well is Missy is approaching her last conjunction to Uranus in her sign. Okay, so Venus is approaching Uranus and they will conjoin at 29 degrees Taurus. This is the sign that Venus rules. Venus is peace and love and harmony. So that's going to be an extraordinary, it's an anaretic degree, and it's the last time they'll conjoin with Uranus and Taurus, okay, for 84 years or whatever. So that's going to be a very powerful statement there. And Venus, of course, is the planet of peace and treaties and truces and the way that people all get along. So it's this might be a ripping away of constraining rules where it's very explicit, you know, or it might be someone putting the brakes on there.
Well, it
So
feels very consequential. And with these
mhm,
sextiles, both to the Pluto and the Uranus, like I'm
mhm.
hearing what you're saying is that this has to be a conversation because it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. And that brings us
Beautiful way of
to
putting it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It has to be a conversation. That's great. Yeah,
then we move in like not that long after we have Uranus that moves into Gemini.
right.
And and there's, the conjunction there as well. Um, Talk about, you don't have to look at this chart. Obviously Uranus and Gemini, Uranus is change, it's new, it's fresh ideas, it's new inventions, it's technology,
Mhm,
it's transportation. Um,
mhm.
there's going to be a collective shakeup and things are not going to look the same. This is kind of the final piece, I think, of all of the things that we are working toward this spring. So have at it, Mr. Renstrom.
Mr. Have at it guy, have at it. Okay, so this is the day. Okay, so what I'm again fascinated by is the moon at 29 degrees Leo at the top of the chart. That means it's opposite the
The
solar
eclipse.
eclipse.
So that eclipse is a big one, people.
That
Big
eclipse is a
one.
huge deal. And there are very strong Aquarian themes. I work with um both ruling planets of Aquarius, Saturn and Uranus. All right. Um, and so when you look at this chart, you're going to see that Uranus goes into Gemini. It's now sextiling Pluto, which is in Aquarius. So Uranus is ruling the Pluto, and then you've also got Saturn at 8 degrees Aries. Uranus is moving towards a sextile. I don't know if it's going to get there or not, but it's definitely at the very least Uranus is sextiling the Saturn by sign. But Saturn is also the co-ruler of Pluto in Aquarius. So I'm loving that you picked up on that word conversation because these are conversations that are taking place. This isn't just you get to go on a Hulk rampage and take out half the city. These are conversations. What I love about the sextiles and trines is that they will change the disposition of the planets. Okay. Uranus by itself can be unruly. It's revolution and change. It's knocking things upside down, upside the head, and knocking over the game board and sending all the pieces flying. But when Uranus isn't trying to Pluto, it has to work with that Aquarian idea. When you bring in Saturn and Aries forming a sextile by sign to Uranus, certainly trining the Pluto, then that's how do these pieces go together here, you know? And you bring Saturn, where it could have been over before it's done energy or whatever. Saturn is almost, people are turning to Saturn saying, well, why did you put the brakes on that? Why did you exercise caution with that? What are and so Saturn has to speak its piece. Saturn has to, and Saturn will, because it's in sextile and trine. It's in conversation. So planets that might have been prohibitive in a square or an opposition are cooperative when they sextile and trine. Okay. Now one could argue, well, they could be cooperative if your air and fire energy is running like a wildfire, and so, because we all know that the big thing that firemen, for instance, fear in a fire is the wind kicking up. Okay. So, could it be argued that that fire and air energy is going to encourage volatile types of energies? That could be argued. One could say what's already volatile could become even more volatile, because it's been enabled by the trine and the sextile. But another way to see it, keeping in mind the properties of Saturn and Uranus, is that there is a seriousness, not a seriousness, there's a long distance view to those planets, and so when they move into conversation like this, are we experiencing a change in our society? Yeah, but changes in society aren't going to be overnight, and you don't overthrow everything that came before. And a lot of times, things that came before, which Saturn's going to represent, can re-exert or reassert themselves. So I love your word conversation because I think it's absolutely going to be, the spring is absolutely going to be conversation of just trying to, and again, it could be argued maybe efforts are being coordinated for war, or maybe efforts are being coordinated to rein it in for the peace and prosperity of the country and the world. Wars are usually fought because you're out to gain something or you're deprived from something. We're not deprived of anything. At this point,
It's
some
not
might say
adding.
we're working on it, but right.
Right. It's not adding up. There's no Clint. And that's what's interesting about the timing too. Like the Jupiter is
Hmm.
retrograde. It feels like it's so if we kind of like bring these three pieces together as like the spring.
Hmm.
So one of my big takeaways from listening to you about the Jupiter going direct is that we have just been through the Jupiter retrograde and all that took place within it, including the eclipses. And these things happen one after the other. They build on each other. They're building blocks. It's not like, okay, Jupiter direct means XYZ. It doesn't mean that. It means this is the next phase, incorporating everything we've just been through.
Right.
And so now there is kind of an empowerment, but that empowerment of that Jupiter in Cancer is part of the whole journey of what
Yeah.
it just went through.
Yeah.
Then we have this big stellium in Aries, including a new moon. A new moon, we can't see the end of at the time of the new moon, but suddenly there is spring. There
Hmm.
is this more kind of hopeful energy, more forward momentum, but it's kind of being kept in check by the Saturn.
And the
Conjunct.
Chiron. I would actually give Chiron a lot of, yeah.
You'd really weigh that Chiron as well. Okay. And so there is a healing opportunity as well, where it's about reflection. It's because Aries is in a very
Although we may be identifying a lot more with the wounding. That's the thing that you have to keep in mind. Chiron is healing others but not himself. That's the famous rub. That's the famous irony. Okay, so whenever you see Chiron in a zodiac sign, you always want to ask what's painful about being that sign. Okay, so what's painful about Aries? Weakness is painful.
Okay.
So it's
The
like what I was
weakness
saying.
is exposed in some ways.
Or the raw nerve is being hit over and over and over again, so that people are like, because what you're hearing is like, there was a threat. We have to show our strength. You're hearing that and you're kind of like, whoa, where's that coming from and where's it going?
Right.
And
Why? Tell us more. And so there's the conversation, which is like, okay, please sell us on this. Please help us understand it, because then we have the Uranus Venus together. And even in our
Mhm,
own lives, there is this wound around, your own agency, your own authenticity, your own like beliefs and like who you are
mhm,
individually versus
mhm.
the collective, what you've been taught to be. And that's an
Well,
examination
well,
point.
look at what we've undergone since COVID and maybe even before. Uranus enters Taurus in 2018. Remember, Taurus at the end of the day is a Venus ruled sign, so it's about how we get along with one another. We have gone through an extraordinary revolution with that. Dinners where you can't talk to other members of the family and getting shouted and counseled and all these things. I mean, we've gone through all of that and we're emerging on the other side of it, and we're seeing strange alliances, even in the political sphere. It's like, people were against this, and now, someone they voted
100%.
for is now going forward with it. So you're going to see a lot of what I call musical chair alliances, where everyone starts in a chair and they walk around and the music stops and a chair is removed and you don't know who you're going to end up sitting next to, sort of thing. So I think we're going to see musical chair alliances during this period of time. And what I like about the Jupiter and Cancer coming out of retrograde, we can have moral dilemmas and predicaments. The fire and energy is going to say, okay, we've got the dilemma and the predicament. Don't sit on it. Turn it into an action step. What's it saying? What's it doing? Do something with it. So it's going to be a very interesting type
Almost
of.
like people are going to start to get their marching orders. Like there's, I kind of see, I can't predict the future, but it's almost
But
like
go ahead and try.
I'll try. So
Yeah.
I feel like there is this energy of, and then the piece also comes into it with Uranus going into Gemini, where there has been this stagnation, this people feeling lost, people feeling stuck, people feeling like, I don't know what the next right move is because everything's so unpredictable, everything's so unprecedented, everything's falling apart that I believed in, that I counted on. And it's almost like that was like the unconscious energy pulling us all with this way and that. With this final pieces of the puzzle falling into place, the unconscious energy where we're going to be pulled is different. It's very different energy and it's much more action oriented and it's much more like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like there's clarity and there is, even if I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. There isn't this like feeling handcuffed or chained to a dystopian reality that doesn't mirror what we thought would happen because we know that's gone. And maybe this Aries stellium is a piece of that, like, yeah, it's gone. Now what? And then, and then we get, Uranus moving into Gemini, where then that's when fresh ideas can start to come into play.
Well, remember every time, I mean, Uranus and Gemini is really impactful on the horoscope of the United States of America. And there's a whole long tradition of Uranus at 9 degrees Gemini. But Uranus in Gemini, a lot of people say, oh, it's a time of war. Go back and really look at what was going on with Uranus and Gemini. In Uranus and Gemini, you have these birth moments. Uranus is in Gemini when we go to war against Britain. Okay. And we don't really take in the fact that the people who went to war against Britain were British citizens. So that's a sibling war. That it's basically a civil war. They weren't Americans. They were British citizens warring against Britain. Okay. Or if you're going to go with the Saturn thing, a Saturn Uranus thing, overthrowing, the king. The next time Uranus is in Gemini, you have the Civil War. I mean, it literally is coming in the Civil War, and everyone again is like, oh, that's a time of war or whatever. You had a rebirth of a nation. Okay. The promise of every man being created equal had to be kept. Okay. In the Civil War. Okay. At the end of the Civil War, you have all these freemen, people who had been slaves. They are citizens now. I mean, take a moment and really think about that. Think about the revolution and change of that. What was property is now a citizen, an American citizen. It's not just like free slaves. Slaves are now people and they are also citizens of the United States of America. And that's what Uranus and Gemini brings by pitting North against South, and the economies and cultures against one another. And so they come together to recreate what an American is. The next time Uranus is in Gemini is 1941. Okay, bombing of Pearl Harbor. It's World War II. Okay, and as a result of World War II, America steps onto the international stage and becomes the superpower. Okay, so every time Uranus has been in Gemini, we've had these complete rebirths or revolutionary turns in the history of the United States of America. What is it to be an American citizen? And at the end of World War II, it's basically everyone's America. Okay, I mean the message of diplomacy and outreach to other countries and the building up of other countries. We were rebuilding Europe. We hadn't rebuilt another country. I mean, this is a result. Everyone's an American now, is what is basically the result of World War II. So we've gone through these extraordinary changes as a people and as a nation and as a vision of the world. And what I like is the trines and sextiles during this period of time with Uranus in Gemini, because it's, as you said, Dabney, it's keeping the conversation going, you know, in real time,
And
talking
and
about what's
that
going on.
Uranus moving into Gemini, I love that you brought up the fact that that's conjunct Venus. And that's going to be a different flavor, a different energy when that ingress is in there. When that's
Yeah.
like, okay, that's dance, like right when that happens, it's dancing with Venus, which has to do with relationships. It has to do with peace. It has to do with the more male, female energies, female,
All
women.
energies, all inter and absolutely women energies,
Right.
absolutely.
So
Remember the whole gender thing, becomes prominent during Uranus and Taurus, which is Venus's
So,
sign.
to your point, Uranus, none of these energies are ever good or bad. They
Right.
just are. They show their sad shadow. They show like
The
they,
light.
and so we're going to see that again this spring. But your analogy of the Wizard of Oz, like what happens after Dorothy realizes that, he is the man behind the curtain? And then she has to figure out a way home, and it's presented to her like there is a new way that was within her all along, and that's,
Right.
I think, the energy of this spring, really.
Right. Right. And in the book, she has to help him build the balloon. She does. She builds it. She sews together the balloon in the book. Okay. I mean, what I found, Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite books, and it's endlessly fascinating. I mean, she's surrounded by empty men. You I mean, basically, the scarecrow is literally a straw man. The Tin Woodsman has no
So
heart.
hard.
The lion has no courage, and the wizard is humbug, a big lie. And the only powerful figures in the book are female. I mean, she's not in the movie or anything like that, but the Queen of the Mice, and then there's the Heron, and then there's Glinda, and there's the Witch of the North. All of them are female. It's a very matriarchal, type of society. And of course, it was inspired by Baum's encounters with theosophy and things along those lines. But yeah, yeah, it's
Check
just
out Christopher's video on Wicked. He does something
it,
about the astrology of Wicked.
There's
And
also the astrology of the Wizard of Oz, by the way. That one's up
okay,
too. Yeah,
all
yeah,
right. So
yeah.
definitely if you like kind of he I love his storytelling. And so it's a really great way to like learn astrology, but it's also a great way to like think about metaphorically what we're going through as a
Mhm.
country, as a world. I mean, we're not the only country screwed up right now. Like we might be the ones like helping to screw up other countries, but this is like this astrology is impacting everyone on a collective level and in our own personal lives. So we have to kind of look and see where the emperor has no clothes, even in our own personal lives.
Yeah.
And where have we been paying deference to a belief system or a boss or a parent or something that we thought had control over us, but it was just a bunch of dumb nerds who, wanted to get laid. So anyway, that's my
Okay, the Dabney just summed it up. But another idea I would introduce is, because we're dealing with Saturn and we're dealing with Aries, um, adolescence. We're dealing with adolescents who are in parental positions and start getting really uncomfortable when they have to take on those parental responsibilities. And we're seeing that in the tech world, and we're seeing it even with a Donald Trump or a Elon Musk. I mean, clearly these people had father issues, which is what Saturn and Uranus is all about, and they have issues with being a father and wanting father approval. And, it's really kind of like an adolescent acting like a man or an adolescent acting like a parent. And I think that that's something we're going to be seeing quite a bit of because you can't just move fast and break things. That's the way a 16-year-old thinks, not the way an mature adult thinks. And we're dealing at a time right here where we're kind of wondering where the adults are in the room.
yes. And that has become abundantly clear. And
And that may be us. It is a democracy and it is we the people, by the way. So we may be the adults in the room.
And that may ultimately be the beginning of our Pluto and Aquarian lesson is that we're going to have to take control back from people who do not have our best interest at heart, who came
The
up
co-
under Pluto and Capricorn, by the way, with all this technology.
yeah. But
So,
the Constitution was written when Pluto was in Aquarius. So the Pluto return is really the Pluto return of the Constitution. So, and the Constitution isn't a Christmas tree that you take out once a year and, put decorations on. It's a evergreen.
not
It's a
just
living,
the Second
breathing.
Amendment.
It's not just the Second Amendment. Oh my God. And that's the other beautiful thing. The 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. There's some
And also,
beautiful
could we
amendments.
have some amendments again? Could we
Right.
maybe as a country come back and realize that there are things that we, the people, want changed? And the energy here is that of that forward momentum and maybe being able to get a new constitution or an updated constitution, which
And that was precisely Thomas Jefferson, Aries. That was precisely Thomas Jefferson's critique of the Constitution. He was like, it needs more amendments. And everyone's like, well, it's a solid document. It's like, these are going to be children's clothes within 50 years. It's going to be like trying to put on children's clothes. You have to have amendments, and amendments have to be an active, living, breathing part of this Constitution, or this country is going to outgrow it and it's going to become confining or
okay,
irrelevant.
we've taken everyone's time for far too long, but I'm really grateful for you unpacking this spring. We've covered a lot. And any final words or anything, but thank you everyone. Check out his channel, check out his salon, check out his books, all those good things because he's kind of awesome as you can see.
Oh my God, you're awesome, and everyone out there is awesome. I mean, it's awesome.
And
Awesome sauce.
Astrotheros is awesome. Even
Astrotheris is
hot tip.
awesome with its color coded, with its ability to grant you color coding on charts and things like that. But thank you so much, Dabney. It's always such a pleasure, and your viewers are so wonderful. They're just
Thanks.
special, special people. Yeah, you have a great group here.
We do have a great group. So, great group. Please like, subscribe, share, spread the word because the more I grow, the more content I can do, the more fabulous people like Christopher I can bring on.
Right.
And remember, there's a reason and a season for it all. The universe is conspiring to help you. And go out there and enjoy the spring.
Yeah.